The biggest upside? Oh, definitely spending time with the kids and with Ian as a family unit. That's definitely the upside, and probably probably equally just as much a challenge. To have a Zoom call where you can see everyone's faces on screen, you're seeing people in their home environment. One of my colleagues said to me, Kate, I don't think I've spoken to you in the last 2 weeks without one of your children coming up to you saying that they're hungry. Coming out of this, whilst it's too soon to say what normal looks like, I think technology will play a really big part in our lives going forward. And we're going to really miss, not being able to see our investors. In some ways, we're sort of appreciating the simple things in life again, and appreciating how important our families are to us. And then the sense of community was a really big one. And stories of, say on Anzac Day morning, a shareholder said that he went out at 6 a.m. and everyone in his street was, out on the street, and what a lovely sense of community that gave him. Normally people probably wouldn't be as friendly and engaging, but people are actually stopping and having a chat and checking in with people. I guess you hear all these lovely stories of neighbours checking in on their neighbours and making sure that that they've got access to food and supplies, etc. So I think that's been really lovely.
Around $3 billion in funds under management. It's obviously a really big responsibility.
Definitely.
In terms of getting the business operating at a state where you were comfortable with that, the custody that you have over those people's money, what were the most important things for you to get done and get right to get the team operating in a way that made you feel comfortable?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing, one of the first things we did before we even moved everyone and, closed the office was to cancel the investor presentations. I think we did that in, at the beginning of March, when it became apparent that, the safety of our investors, needed to be a priority as well. And by cancelling it early meant that we can then adapt to, well, how are we going to best engage with our 80,000 shareholders? So not only were we facing this health crisis, we also had an economic crisis and markets that were incredibly volatile. And, there's no doubt when you're responsible for shareholders, retirement savings, that one of the most important things is not only how you're managing that money, but also how you're communicating with your investors.
Have you thought about what going back to work looks like?
I have definitely, and we have as a team. Obviously, we're talking about it all the time. I think it's too soon, to be honest. I really think there's no need to rush back. I think we need to think about, as a company, the impact of, rushing back into the city and having people back on public transport. If we're able to continue working in this current state for a bit longer and just let society ease back into things, then I think that's something that we can do.
We've talked a bit about the positives. What are some of the things that the team say don't work? What can't be replaced?
I mean, with technology, which has been brilliant, and I think, as I've talked about, there still have been some challenges from a tech perspective. You'll be sort of midway through a board meeting and, something freezes or you miss, look, that's just technology, that's, the internet. But I think we've been very fortunate in this country, to have decent internet. Whilst we're all set up from a tech perspective with laptops, etc., and our mobile phones and access to emails, I think there's no doubt we underestimated the impact for those that have got children having to, once the school's closed, having to try and manage homeschooling on top of managing your work commitments, I think has been a really big challenge for a lot of families. And I think just dealing with, there's a lot of families that are doing it really tough from a financial perspective, with partners, being stood down or losing their jobs, or they're concerned about losing their jobs. There's a huge amount of anxiety and stress in the community, which I think we underestimate. So I think that the challenges are definitely from an economic perspective in terms of our country and, I guess globally, as they've, shut down economies and the impact that has on families and on individuals. You sort of can't underestimate the impact of that on people's well-being, on their mental health, and all those sorts of things.
And what's a single message you'd leave with shareholders?
Oh, look, I just, hope that they're all, well and safe at this time. I guess let them know that, the investment team are working really hard, managing their money and their capital, and that we'll miss them. We'll miss them in May of this month, and hopefully that we'll see them in November in person because, in terms of a sense of community, let's hope we're able to see them again soon.